So I think I'll start now. A very good morning to every one of you. I, on behalf of the Department of Mass Communication and Journalism and the management of St. Joseph's Degree and PG College, would extend a very warm welcome to each one of you. Today, as you know, is the last day of our 5-day faculty development program and professional development program webinar series, Living Through COVID-19, Indian Perspectives. This webinar has been conducted in collaboration with the Department of Journalism and Mass Communication, Osmania University, and the Center for Digital Education Technology, Osmania University. Dear friends, I believe that the sessions over the past 4 days have been enlightening, have been enriching, and rewarding to each one of you. And today's session, which talks about something which is very pertinent, which is very topical, that is life after COVID-19. We have reached lockdown 4, and all of us know that things are opening up, be it establishments, be it transport, be it governance. So the issues that we're going to deal with today is very, very significant and important. So I will not be taking much time. I will hand it over to Professor Vishweshwar, who's the moderator for this day, and who's also the director of St. Joseph's Degree and PG College. So Professor Vishweshwar, over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Glenn. I also take this opportunity to welcome all of you for this webinar. I hope it's going to be informative. It will give an insight about the impact COVID-19 has on social and virtual life. That is going to be the focus of our discussion. When we are discussing about the impact of COVID-19 in a country like India, it has been multidimensional. The novel coronavirus is a global threat, but the pandemic has had an uneven impact across countries and within countries. When we look at the nature of impact it has in India is quite sharp. Historically, social inequalities has always been extreme in India. However, the lockdown has sharpened the edge of inequality further. Social inequality, economic inequality. So the lockdown, the way it has been implemented in this country, many countries have imposed lockdown, but not as stringent and severe as India. What is more, the largest lockdown in the world with hardly any safety net. When I'm talking about safety net, the looking at the conditions of people, their life, particularly the migrant labor, people who are marginalized sections. The sudden decision deprived countless people of jobs and livelihood. The focus of our discussion is going to be when you lose jobs, when you lose your livelihood, what is the kind of an impact it will have on social and economic life in India. This has strained fragile social and economic fabric of this country. So in that kind of a context, I think it's important for me to give one or two facts. More than half of COVID-19 deaths are patients above 60. 64% of those affected were males. Over 50% of those who died were above 60 years. And I'm sure we will discuss what kind of an implication it will have. The ministry indicates that 64% were male and 36% were female. It has been observed world over that COVID-19 affects more males more than females. Before we open it for discussion, I think it's important for me to give another statistic so that we will discuss this dimension. Statistics have revealed the Center for Monitoring the Indian Economy for India indicate that nearly 24% of India's workforce now out of gainful employment. And then it has affected every sector: auto manufacturing sector, auto dealership, retail, organized, unorganized sector, internet business, real estate, travel and tourism, media and entertainment, education, telecom services, and many other sectors. So we are here to discuss several dimensions related to this. I'm happy that we have Dr. Shulagna Sarkar. She's an associate professor with one of the leading management schools in this country, Institute of Public Enterprise. She teaches human resource management there, and she's also associated with several schools in terms of teaching several issues, several dimensions relating to management. We also have Dr. Veeraja. She teaches psychology with Osmania University. She's associated with several counseling centers. She's also associated with several NGOs. She has been teaching psychology for over 15 years. We also have with Padma Priya. She has been with media for over 10 years. She has been associated with several non-governmental organizations relating to environment and poverty. Right now, she's the founder editor of Suno India, which is a podcast platform commenting on socio-economic and several other contemporary issues. As part of this webinar, we'll also be discussing about the impact on social life and virtual life. That would mean how we're going to be working in our offices. What is the role of online teaching? What is the role? Are we going to be having reorientation of educational programs and in terms of using different kinds of media, particularly ICTs and social media? So these are the issues we'll be discussing. With this, I now welcome Dr. Shulagna Sarkar, who was teaching at Institute of Public Enterprise, to make our initial remarks. Shulagna.
Thank you, Professor PLV, and I thank Professor PLV for giving me this opportunity, as well as the Institute, which is hosting such a beautiful program. I'm just here to share the screen, what I'm going to talk about. I will speak for the next 20 minutes, and I'm going to ensure that I speak only in context to life after COVID, social and virtual life. So when I'm speaking this, I cannot miss these statements. It is not the most intellectual of the species that survives. It is not the strongest that survives, but the species that survives is the one that is able to best adapt and adjust to the changing environment in which it finds itself. And that is the most relevant thing that we are here to discuss today. And these lines are very, very old by Leon Megginson in 1963, but it still holds true even after almost about 80 years. I would like to ponder on certain points like how this new change has changed our lives. What is the new normal and what are the challenges we are likely to face when we return back to our workplaces? Will we ever come back to the pre-2020 mode? And what are some of the practices that we can change and follow in our workplaces as well as our homes? So these are some of the points which I'm going to talk about. I truly believe that whenever we are talking about work and life, it is just like a two-sided sword. And we cannot miss the terminology of work-life balance. And whenever we are talking about work, school, family, community, there are certain things which are very important. So I decided to have a poll with all of you. There'll be a question in front of you. Can you just click yes or no? So we'll get to see what is the kind of result. It's a live poll. Please participate. So the first question is, have you worked, studied online during the lockdown? So we're still getting responses, and I'm surprised when people say no, because when you are as a part of this program, it itself means that you are a part of the online study mode or you have worked online. So I was expecting 100% to say yes, but I still have around 11% responding no. Can we go to the next question, please? Next question, this is the result. Okay, it says 89% have said yes and 11% says no, they have not worked online and neither have studied online, which is not true because you're a part of the program itself says that you are a part of online mode. Go to the next question, please. Polling 2. Next question.
Yes, ma'am. 1 second.
Yes. So we have very interesting questions. I'm just going to ask you 5 different questions. So next one is, this is not the one. Okay, never mind. I think there is some problem with the polling. So my next question to all of you is that have you ever participated or I'll just take you forward to the questions.
Ma'am, here it is, ma'am.
Okay, have you been able to?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Have you got in touch with a friend or relative after a long time during the lockdown? This is an interesting question, and I've intentionally raised this question to see what kind of responses we get. Okay, let's close the response. So we get around 70% of them said that during this lockdown, they have got in touch with a friend or a relative with whom they have not been in touch for quite some time. Go to the next question, the third one. The third one. Should
Yes,
I
ma'am,
read
here
it out?
it is.
Yes. The third question is, have you started performing some sort of yoga, exercise, health conscious effort during this lockdown, which otherwise you did not think of attempting? So again, I see very wonderful responses here. Please close the poll. It's almost about 83% of people who say that they have attempted to make a change in their lifestyle, which is all about thinking about yoga, exercising, health consciousness. Go to the next question, which is the fourth one. The fourth question.
Yes, ma'am, here it is, ma'am.
Yes. Do you know any kid, do you know about your kid's syllabus, study pattern, exam pattern, which otherwise you were not majorly involved in? Now, this question stands for those people who have kids and those who are just studying or, those who are not married. I have posted the same set of questions for those people as, do you know the challenges of the profession your parents are in, right? Now, intentionally, again, I have raised this because many a times we, while working, we are not involved with our family the way we should. And you see the responses here. This has been said that 82%, 88% almost have now started being a part of the studying pattern of the kids, and they are aware of how their parents' professions are. Otherwise, you don't take much interest. Let's go to the last question of the day. The last question. And
Yes,
that
ma'am, here
closes
it
my
is.
poll. Yeah. Have you started pursuing your long lost hobby or interest during the lockdown, which you otherwise did not think of attempting? Now, very interesting results. Now, how many of you really think, above 80% of the people say that they have done things which they otherwise don't attempt during the lockdown? So 80% of the people are saying, yes, we have undertaken newer things in our life, which we would not have done it. Now, that's the interesting part. Let's close the poll. So I'm sure all of you are able to see the results in front of you. So what I would like to highlight is that whatever we see, whenever we are talking of work, home, community, we usually attempt trade-offs. We are not thinking of building a balance between it. We usually focus on the trade-off. Contrary, if you hear the words of Friedman, Friedman has clearly told balance is a bunk. It is misguided notion that assumes we must always make trade-offs among the different aspects of life. So it's not trade-off which is important. We need to move from mental model of balancing to mental model of integration. And that is where COVID is teaching all of us to move. Because now we are moving and shelling off our usual pattern of work. We are thinking of different lifestyle. We are thinking of doing things which we were not doing otherwise. Now we are thinking of people, looking after more. You'll be surprised. The other day we used to have a mothers group for our kids who is just a 6-year-old. Now we are finding that even fathers are taking equal interest and they want to be a part of the group, and they are generating a lot of discussions in terms of what to or do to, how to engage the kids. So that is where the integrations have to happen. Apart from that, I would also share, we all are talking of working from home option. Earlier, how many of your workplaces do you really used to talk to the mother or to the wife of a colleague, or to the husband of a colleague, or to the children of a colleague? But now that we are online, the first thing that we do while we are working online is get our child and say, okay, see, this is my kid, just say hello. It's a very well gesture of building in integrity between the family and the work, because all this while there was a gap which was existing between what our workplaces we used to do and what our family used to assume us to be. So now that is, building up that integration between your workspace and your life space. And that is what the mental model of integration talks about. And we have certainly head off to it. Now, challenges when we talk of at workplaces. One very important thing when we are talking in Indian context is, are we having enabled homes? Majority of the mask is either staying in a 2 BHK or in a 1 BHK. In many of the metropolitans, they are staying in shared apartments. Then it's very difficult to have workplaces where we all can talk and yet we do not disturb others, because we are in a very close, compact place, and that does disturbs the way we speak, way we are joined with our workplaces. Reliable connectivity and power is a big issue in Indian context. Information security is a big issue. Productivity versus surveillance. A lot of companies are speaking on this. Discipline at home for work. There have been a lot of WhatsApp messages which is highlighting, people are just wearing shirt and they are in pajamas and still trying to work. Now, are we really having the discipline at home while we are at work? We need to focus on that. I also would like to talk about the prestige of being into fancy offices. We are so used to being into nice workplaces that at home we find the difference between a fancy workplace and what we do at home. Another one is the social stigma. I mean, I have faced this. If you are not going to office, neighbors who don't even talk to you ever have questioned, what happened? You're not, are you working from home? Are you still on the job? I mean, I was just roaming outside the balcony, but did my neighbor talk about it to me, who never speaks to me? Now, that could be a scenario further when we all stop going to workplaces and start working from home. Still in India, that social stigma of why don't you go and work at office comes in question, and we are not mentally yet prepared with it. And sometimes our workplaces does take away our family space also. So what happens is, while we are having a night shift, now I assume that we have a very mixed crowd here. Some of you might be working in night shifts also. So when you are having that, automatically what happens is, people, there is an intrusion between your family life and you, and it does affect your productivity. And sometimes we also feel that we need to go out. So challenges, again, I see a very good friend of mine is now far off. I can't hug the person, say hello, or meet my friend with a handshake. Productivity and adoption. What is the new normal? You need to check it. Cup of tea. We are so used to that 11 o'clock or 3 o'clock timing that we have to meet each other, have a cup of tea. But now there is no such scenario that we can expect. What we can think of is very different workplace, where you will see water cooler addas won't be the same as it used to be earlier. Our workplaces will be as different, where you will have technology being intervening and then supporting us. So what I have another 5 minutes to speak, where I'll talk about redesigning your outfit, your cubicles, your conference rooms, your cafeterias. creating staggered work schedules is a very, very important point. When we are talking of having workplaces at the times of COVID, we cannot have that 11 o'clock and 3 o'clock and coming up at 8, 9 o'clock, all of them together, leaving at 4 o'clock, all of them together. It has to be a staggered workplace with staggered timings. Everybody has to be on their own, and we have to build in that kind of trust and mechanisms. Some of the individual efforts that you can do is add plants to your workplace, create a lot of natural lighting, keep a lot of window and let light in. It will help sometimes to motivate ourselves because we are going to work individually. Now, this is one slide I'm going to take 2 minutes. Is we are heading towards a network organization. And in this network organization scenario, we cannot have bureaucratic functions, and we need to build in an individual trust-driven culture. We have to enforce that people can work on their own. We have to build in that faith with them and drive them to work. We cannot move in with more of synchronized model of communication, and we have to enable people with more asynchronized model, and also encourage people with reverse mentoring, because we are dealing with technology stuff. There are different sets of generation at workplace. You have to have reverse mentoring apart from mentoring, because there's lots of experience on one hand with 30 years, 40 years of experience. On the contrary, there are experience with technology, which needs to be blended together. I would like to share this very interesting slide, which says that earlier there used to be a notion that type A personalities, I am assuming that all of you know what type A and type B personalities are. So type A personalities, those who are very gregarious, very enthusiastic, and they used to lead the organization. Contrary, what is now expected is in COVID times, and this is not my research, it is available online, that during this difficult times of COVID, type B personalities are going to lead, because they are more patient, they are more synchronized, they are more, they can lead it with a lot of listening capabilities, which type A may not have. So the whole scenario of introverts and type B personalities leading is going to be a change which we are going to witness in the next few months or time. Writing skills will be highly appreciated, because during this COVID scenario, what we need is asynchronized communication, and so does documentation play a very, very important role. So what is going to happen is we are going to witness people with good writing skills given more emphasized in the working environment. So I just suggest one book which we all should read, which is called as Word of Mouse by Mark Ostrowski. Now, this is a very interesting book because it talks about lots and lots of data in terms of how our way of adapting technology has come down, and how we are taking technology, both acceptance in individual, as an individual, in organizations and at government level. So if you all are interested, probably you can read that. This is my last slide, which talks about life will never return to a pre-2020 mode. We all have to learn to live with the virus. But one strong line, which is very essential, is once we have survived the survival mode, then turn our attention to future. So let us focus on building all those skill sets, encouraging people, building trust, learning technology to survive the survival mode. This is the essential of today's discussion. So thank you. I think I have been able to make it into 20 minutes.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Shulagna, you have raised several kinds of issues, socially, how it's going to be impacting our pattern of work, working from home, the kind of strategies we need to adopt, working from home, how family life, how relationships are going to be changing. And if you talked about how networking organizations are going to be becoming important. And then in view of COVID-19, when you are working in a working environment, we need to have new skills in terms of, we need to document everything we do. We need to develop writing skills, and ultimately you said, adapt technology, because life is not going to be the same. Yeah, life is going to dramatically and drastically change, and we have got to cope with. As you very rightly said, we've got to cope with living with the virus. And I think it's very, very important to know that working life, social life, the way we function, the relationships are going to be, the way we're going to be interacting is going to be changing, and got to live with it. We will take another presentation. Yeah, I hope Dr. P. Veeraja is here.
Good morning,
Veeraja?
sir.
Yeah.
Yes, good morning, sir.
Yeah.
Just
I've introduced Dr. P. Veeraja, teaches psychology at Osmania University. She has been teaching psychology for about 15 years, and she's also associated with several kinds of non-governmental organizations. And she's also in a big way counseling young people. Dr. Veeraja, we will try to get to know your perspective about as a psychologist, what kind of an impact it will have on the social life and social fabric of India.
First, good morning, sir. Thank you so much because you have given me the greatest opportunity to share my views as well. So I have a PPT also here. I would like to share that.
Yeah.
So before that, in fact, I just wanted to share a few experiences here. So it was, I think, some time around March, I believe, right? I was just, one of those evenings, very common evenings here. Then, I got to see some virtual visuals of one of the most important commercial cities. I don't want to mention any country here. And I was like, just like any other, I was like, shocked to see the kind of restrictions that they were putting on people around and the movement around. And though I was shocked, I thought what I thought was, anyway, I will never let those changes come, or reach me. In fact, just like, my own self, many others, might have thought the same, that, it would never reach, me, myself, my country. So, and one day, at my doorstep, it was there. And it was like, first a state of shock, followed by denial, then optimistic, bias. Anyway, it will never, reach me, it will never reach me. And it was, there's some technical.
Yeah, go ahead, we can hear you.
Yeah, you can hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, because, something was restricted there, and that was kind of, my very autonomy was restricted. 1 second, sir. I'm not able to, share my visual here.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, as all of you know, we are discussing a very important issue. What kind of an impact COVID-19 had on social life and virtual life. And as part of social life, we have been discussing how life has changed, how working environment has changed, how lifestyles are being changing. And Shulagna talked about what kind of an impact it will have in terms of our pattern of work. Are we going to be working from home? Are we going to be adapting technology for our working situations? And what kind of an impact it will have on family life and relationship? And then what kind of a networking we're going to be doing? And then that in view of the impact of COVID-19, the entire working environment, working scenario is going to be changing. We have to get used to technology. We need to adapt technology in a bigger way in terms of our work environment. Is Dr. Veeraja there? Or
No, sir, some technical glitch, sir.
Yeah, can we get in and if Shulagna is there?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Till Veeraja comes back, we'll try to get to know Shulagna.
Padma Priya ma'am is also there, sir.
Yeah? Padma Priya is there?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, can we get her in?
Yes, sir.
I'm here. 1 second. Yeah. Hello.
Yeah, Priya. Now we are interested in getting, your perspective about. We have been talking about, social life. How do you think, the virtual life is going to be? Because you have plenty of background in media. What kind of a scenario is likely to emerge?
No,
I think one of the things that has happened now is these webinars and Zoom meetings. I think they have increased accessibility of people attending them, even those who earlier could not, perhaps attend them in person meetings. And for me, that has been something that has been very interesting to watch. Because earlier you would have to, you would have to put limitations, right? You would say, okay, I just have a 150 seater auditorium and we can't bring in more than 150 people or 300 people. But when it becomes a virtual platform or a virtual webinar like this, you have 300 people or 400 people or even up to 800 people joining a webinar. So I think one of the things that has happened in life after COVID has been, I think, increase in accessibility. But also I'm very aware of the fact that we do have a wide digital divide in this country. But even among those who have access to the digital, things, the adoption of technology has increased a lot. So the way I look at the whole life after COVID is, how demonetization pushed us towards digital payments, right? Even those of us, parents or grandparents who did not know how to operate a Paytm app on the phone had no choice but to download a Paytm app or some other app like that to join, to start using and make payments. So I think we are now being pushed into a similar sort of a situation now, where more and more of us, irrespective of our age, irrespective of our understanding with technology, are having to adapt much faster and much quickly to this way of life. The other thing that I see happening is that I'm hoping and I'm thinking and wondering if, in the days to come, will we now see a shift from, offline events to more online events? Will this mean that people and panelists who earlier were not being invited because of, distance, or because, if we have to bring this panelist in, we will have to pay for their travel, we'll have to pay for their stay. Now will they become more accessible? I think for me, those are interesting things that I would like to see, I would like to sort of follow and see how this is going to pan out, because COVID and lockdown has sort of forced us to accept these new realities, right? And suddenly we are like, okay, now we can reach out to a panelist by email, send them a Zoom link like 2 days in advance, do like dry runs, ask them to join in. So I feel like life after COVID has increased accessibility to a lot of people. Lot of people can now interact with each other in a way that they probably couldn't do in an offline meeting. I mean, if we were to do this panel discussion within a college setting or within a university setting, as speakers, even though we would love to interact with all those present, it is really not possible. Whereas here, we have the freedom to give out, say, our email ID, or we can take some more questions here in a virtual space. The other thing that I see happening in life after COVID, or how social interactions is going to change, will definitely be, I think, I think we will sort of, there might be like a bit of push and pull. Like some of us will really want to get out and want to meet people. And I think, for me, like as a journalist, it's part of my daily life to go out and meet people. And this is, I think, the longest that even I have stayed home. And while I've been able to adapt, I don't necessarily think that I really like staying at home and like doing journalism this way. So I think for a couple of us, we will have to rework and think, okay, how do I now report, or how do I get stories out without putting my team in the harm's way, or without putting myself in the harm's way? Because like Shulagna ma'am said, I think the coronavirus is here to stay for, say, another 18 to 24 months till we find a vaccine. So we need to find a way to coexist with it. I do hope that this will finally, I think the conversations that have happened in the last few months, whether it is around public health, I think, earlier health was a subject that was sort of relegated and given to mostly women reporters, right? So a lot of us would be assigned, Acha Padma, Priya, you take care of health, you take care of women and child, take care of whether a go cover, because health was always considered a soft beat. And I think this pandemic has sort of shown a mirror to all of us that health is not a soft beat. If anything, health is one of the most political beats that can happen, right? I mean, and it has really exposed the inequities that are existing in our country, especially like those who can afford 10 lakhs can go to a private hospital. Those who can't will have to, lie on a overcrowded government hospital and, see how they can beat this virus. So I think this is one of the things that will happen. Is I hope that these conversations will continue in the months to come, where we talk about how do we restructure public health, how do we look at public health from a more political aspect, right? Because and will we now start questioning our governments, like why is less than or just 1% of the GDP being allocated to public health when it should be more than that? I mean, ideally it should be at least 10% of the GDP being allocated to public health, because now we know that if a big public health crisis like this one hits, our economy collapses. So I think these are certain things that we will have to think, and we will also have to think as citizens, right? Not just as academics. I think we need to think as citizens, and we need to go out there and think of all this before we go for our next vote. Like, okay, what has this MLA or MP done in my constituency? Has he helped build hospitals? Has he strengthened the education systems? What did she do during the pandemic? So I feel like even as citizens, we are becoming more aware during this pandemic. The other important aspect that I would really like us to sort of think about, and these are again thoughts that I'm putting out. I'm not an expert in this, but one of the things that I have been thinking about a lot is the fact that, till COVID hit, one of the biggest emergencies that is facing the world today is the climate emergency. We are facing an unprecedented, speed in which climate change is occurring. You have glaciers melting at an unprecedented rate. You have, seas warming, the global warming happening. I mean, Super Cyclone Amphan is just one example of how often cyclones are hitting our country. And this is happening because of the warming of seas. But is it really on top of our political leaders? Is it really a conversation that we are having on a daily basis with ourselves? Are we going to, and one of the things that COVID has taught us in a lockdown is that we can, of course, do a lot of our work sitting at home without spending tons of money on fuel and without polluting the cities. We can do a lot of things by reducing our carbon emissions. And also, I think a very important part that for me personally has happened because of COVID is, do we really need to constantly consume things? Do we really need to buy those clothes for that important meeting or panel discussion or, important seminar? Like, I think a lot of us are, passing time just by wearing pajamas at home, right? I mean, honestly, like a lot of the meetings we're attending in just wearing very informal clothes. So I feel like the social interactions, and I think there is a level of, realization that, as long as the work gets done, it really doesn't matter what you're wearing. So I think for us to also rethink ourselves as consumers, were we consuming all these days more? And I think the unequivocal answer is yes, we were, right? I mean, how many of us have now, because of lockdown, the other thing that has happened is we are not spending as much on e-commerce, right? We cannot order whatever we want at the drop of a hat from Amazon. Oh, I want this book. Oh no, let me buy this thing for myself. Let me buy these headphones. I think we are forced to sort of realize that we can, of course, exist with very limited capacities. And all of us who are there on this conference, I mean, on this call today, are perhaps much more privileged than those migrants who are walking now hundreds of kilometers or thousands of kilometers. So I think I think the inequities are there in front of us. How we live and how do we cope and how do we address these inequities, I think will be some of the biggest challenges that we will see and we will have to address in life after COVID. Because I don't think, like Shulagna ma'am said, like life after COVID is going to be drastically different. And it will be different, and we have to think differently. I know, like, for example, I know a lot of my friends who are now thinking of growing their own vegetable gardens, or, doing like balcony gardens or, rooftop gardens, because they suddenly are so scared to go out to groceries, right, to buy their own vegetables. So they're like, oh, let's just grow our own vegetables. This could have done even before COVID, right? I mean, we didn't have to wait for a pandemic to hit us on our face to realize that these are small acts of change that can actually bring a lot of change. It's like one individual act, but if, say, my entire colony of 500 flats decides to grow their own vegetables, you are pushing for sustainability in a way that governments, that NGOs have not been able to do. So I feel like life after COVID will change in 3 different levels. One is the behavioral aspect of it. One is also the awareness aspect of it as a citizen. Like, as a citizen, I hope we are all more aware of the fact that we have to hold our governments to a much higher standard. These are, we have to ask them, why are you only spending 1% of the GDP on public health? Why couldn't you have managed this better? And I think the other aspect that this is going to help, for us to think about, is about consumerism, is about sustainability. If tomorrow, imagine this is going to continue for the next 6 months, right? And we are expecting farmers to go and till there, risking their lives. What is it that the farmers are getting in return? They're not even getting a fair price. So I think there are a lot of things that I think are becoming more aware because of the pandemic, just in terms of how interdependent we are as a world, how we are as a nation, and how we are as a community. And I really hope, like, these are just some of the things that we will think about in the days to come. One final point before I sort of stop speaking. The other thing I really want us to sort of focus on the digital divide. I think a lot of us are going from one webinar to another, to one Zoom meeting to another. This is, again, something that not a lot of people are able to do. Even when you're talking about education, digital education, and doing online classes, not everybody can afford a smartphone. What happens to the children in government schools? What happens to children in Jammu and Kashmir, where internet has been severely restricted for the past 8 months now? There is 2G internet running there. They have been denied education for nearly a year now. So I think we really need to sort of ask if we truly are a democracy working towards equality for all, is it really happening? And of course, the answer is no. If we have schools saying, please buy a smartphone, like, a friend of ours got a message saying, please buy smartphone and iPad for your child. The child is 4 years old or 5 years old, and they're asking the parents to buy a dedicated tablet for the child because the whole year they might continue into online education. Of course, a middle class family could afford it, but what happens to the people who work in your home, your cooks and the domestic servants and their children? I mean, aren't they justified to go to school? I really want us to think about these questions. Think about what can you as an individual do to ensure that this inequity doesn't become much more wider than it already has. Why should somebody flying in domestic flights between states not be quarantined for 15 days, but migrants who are walking be quarantined for 15 days? We need to ask questions, and I really hope this pauses. This is a fantastic moment for us as citizens, as a collective, to sort of think about these questions, to think about what is the impact of an individual action, and how can we as individuals push our representatives, push our governments to do better, because they need to do better. So with this, I close.
Yeah, I did start off, my introduction saying that coronavirus has, in a country like India, where there's very, very sharp social and economic inequalities are there, and you have very, very, eloquently addressed that issue. But there are several studies, which have been done in the last, 1 or 2 months in this country, that when you're talking about online education in schools and colleges and universities, even even in corporate universities, even in central universities, many of them do not have access to internet. And you've addressed that issue about technology haves and technology have-nots, digital inequality. But then the country seems to be in a hurry. They've already decided 100 universities now are going to be online courses. When we do not have access to technology, that's going to be a huge challenge. How do you think we need to deal with this issue?
I honestly feel like Shulagna was saying, I really think that right now the country is going through a crisis, which was one caused by, of course, a public health issue, the pandemic, the coronavirus, but also one which was created by completely mismanaged. I feel like the crisis in itself was really poorly managed. About the 100 universities going online and how do we manage this, I don't have the perfect answer, but I do feel like I think it is the job of academics. I think it is the job of professors and teachers in these universities to push back and say, in a class of 40, even if 10 students don't have access to, even if 10 students in my class don't have access to internet, I will not teach, because it is unfair to my students that only 30 students are taught and 10 students are being left behind. I mean, we are talking about, and in a lot of these universities, whether it's central universities or other universities, there are also students who come in from economically weaker sections. Of course, students who are also from in the reservation category, who are for generations anyway being denied what is rightfully theirs. So I feel at this point, one of the biggest things that teachers, that these 100 universities can do is having the academics push back and say, no, this is not fair for my students. Even if one student is being denied equitable access to education, I really hope, the academics will rise up to the occasion, and the teachers will rise up to the occasion, and push back to the government and say, let's find another situation. Even if it means we lose out on 6 more months of education, that's fine. Let's start after 6 months. Let's start the academic year afresh after 6 months.
Yeah.
Because I think surviving right now is of core importance for all of us.
Yeah. Thank you very much. We'll get back to you. We will take some more questions. I now request Dr. Veeraja. Is she back? There was some kind of a technical.
Sir. Yes, sir.
Yes,
Ma'am is here,
yes,
sir.
sir. Yes, I'm here, sir. Thank
Dr.
you.
Priya,
There's
go
some
ahead.
technical
Continue your
thing.
presentation.
Yeah. So pandemic COVID-19, as I think, both the madams have already given us a very good information on that. But definitely we have never thought we would be facing a situation, like this in our life, because it has affected, our personal life, work, functional life, social life, and, basic lifestyle, our very health behavior as well.
It's
And here,
impacted children. It impacted
yes,
women.
especially children, women, I think
Everything.
irrespective of the age, gender, community, culture, I think country, everything, each person, world, all over, everyone is affected by this. As I said, first maybe it was kind of a shock, but, fear, anticipatory anxiety, frustration, stress, because of all our resources are coming down and demands are more here and always under, fight or flight. And slowly, we have come down to a situation called, exhaustion, and that is affecting. And not only that, we have come to a stage where, this Darwin's principle, like, survival of the fittest, but actually we need to take it as a person environment fit here, and that is actually, affecting our very well-being here. And well-being needs to be, understood as a, not exactly as a state of happiness, but here, contentment and low levels of distress and good physical and mental health, having a very good quality of life. All these are very important for the well-being. And after COVID-19, in fact, people are really confused whether they are in the state of well-being or not. And here what we need to understand, Madam Shulagna has already stated this, both mind and body, both are very, very important for the well-being, because they are very intertwined, you can say, and they have a very strong impact on our well-being here. So, as I said, when we say well-being here, I must say about, subjective well-being as well, because there is a kind of emotional and cognitive evaluation of our very life here. And after all this, we must feel good about ourselves. Otherwise, this very subjective well-being is at stake. And social and psychological dimensions, are health-related behaviors, everything, all these things have been under stake now, and hence people are not able to understand where exactly we are. Okay. And another important thing is here, as I said, mental health. And mental health, in fact, whether people are able to adjust themselves, do we have this freedom from anxiety, and are we able to establish our, relationships not only with ourselves but as well as with the environment around, and are we able to relate to our life? Anyway, we are not able to relate ourselves, as we used to live in our past, and we are very much confused about our future as well. And will we be able to cope with the, demands and stresses of life? Everything is under, people are under a kind of confusion. So here, one important thing that we need to understand is, if we want to understand here, because it's kind of, individual related to the ecosystem here, social systems like society, community, family, they have impact on our psychological systems of individual, like, our cognitions, how we think, and emotions, are we really motivated or not? And these two things are again affecting our biological systems. So all these things need to be understood as a whole. And now I want to concentrate more on the psychological well-being. From psychological aspect here, again at individual perspective, because psychological factors, social factors, biological factors, these three would have an greatest impact on psychological well-being here. And under psychological well-being, I mean, before entering into the children aspect as well as women and aged here, I want to state a few important things about psychological well-being, because here we are into a state of accepting. Are we able to accept our own selves as well, whether um, because we are really disappointed about our achievements, and we are not able to acknowledge these twists, these unpredictable twists here. And I think many people are not able to maintain their relationships as we used to. Of course we are calling, and we are uh, because of these mobiles and all that, we are able to relate to each other, but still, are we able to maintain meaningful relations here? I mean, many of us are kind of frustrated about relations. And here once we always expect to have these warm and trusting relationships with others. And as I already mentioned here, a sense of autonomy, sense of independence in our thought, action, and these are also under kind of confusion. And most important is this environmental mastery, the ability to manage complex environment to suit our needs and values. And in fact, everyday life is kind of up and down, being in charge of the situation. Many a times we are not able to take charge of the situation, and we are not able to manage the responsibility of our lives. In fact, many of us are able to cope with this situation, but still under kind of confusion here. And meaningful goals, I mean, before we used to have many goals, our daily activities, in fact our lifestyle, our health behavior, well health behavior. I mean, all these things, we used to have a greatest kind of daily chart, like. So now we are in a kind of confusion, because we are just looking at our future, what exactly we are going to look at. And personal growth also, I mean, new challenges. Once upon a time, you yourself said that you always fight for human rights and this. I mean, all these challenges, where did they go? I mean, you're also still observing. We all are observing. I mean, growth is also okay. Let me just wait for my personal growth here. So it's a kind of the state we are in right now is a kind of reactive state, and many of us are under stress, I think. Probably quite a few people are still under a kind of poor adjustment, and those who are proactive, they're able to adjust themselves, adapt themselves. And fatigue, insomnia, quite irritated. And here kind of negative emotions as well. Negative emotions goes to the extent of contracting our arteries, and probably heart is also not able to work as it should be. And stress controls our immunity here. And positive emotions, probably the negative emotions has taken over the positive emotions more. And anxiety, frustrations, and longer periods of frustration would lead to stress, and finally the depression here. So but since we are in this progressive period, of course temporarily we are in a state of confusion, but again we need to conceptualize the environmental terms marked by optimism, because so what exactly we are going to do, because we have already discussed so much about this COVID-19, the situation we are in, the environment we are in. Okay, what next now? What next? So after all, we need to acknowledge whatever that we are in right now. But whether be it stress, whether be it this temporary depression state, confusion, irritability, and mm, proper planning is not there. But still, let us acknowledge all these things, and let them not determine our autonomy, our life as such. So whichever state we are in, let us try to assess where exactly we are in, which state we are in, and let us try to identify and treat. In case if we need better treatment, let us approach um, a professional, and let us treat ourselves and go for the improvement. And here uh, the most important thing is, yes, there are two things that we need to concentrate on right now, the prevention as well as promotion, because prevention and promotion, both of them need to have a kind of balance in between. Now what else to be, I mean, what exactly is to be promoted here? The risk factors, for example, 3 to 4 factors. Children must be learning to take risk, and they can take risk to 3 to 4 factors in their life, I mean, immediately, one after the other. So aged people can also take risks, because they are already so well experienced that. So here we should be promoting each other to take risk. So this can definitely reduce their biological, psychological, social capacities, but yet with all the protective factors here, or protective measures here, definitely we should be able to take risks, and we have that ability, and we must believe that we can take risk. And how to take risk here? Again, we must be equipping ourselves with all the protection, and of course taking risk itself make us more resilient, because the ability of people to overcome adverse conditions, of course it comes through resilience only, and that makes us or that transform us to, again, a different sense of self, a different sense of community, a different sense of self, to again reach our life roles, or change our life goals probably. And that leads to a kind of positive growth here. And what exactly is to be learned here, so that we can prevent many things here, including COVID, because it's not exactly post COVID. I would say that we are somewhere in between. We are still learning how to cope with that. In fact, many things about which we are not yet aware. And the strengths here definitely must be learned. Strength, again, of course, children are to they should become more aware of their strengths at the very beginning. In fact, the personal assets and all that. And then now protection factors. What are these protection factors I'm talking about? Here the biological, psychological, social and emotional capacities of, and love, care here, everyone has to, individual needs to cross the boundaries here, the system boundaries that we draw around each other, and we need to go across our neighborhood, our society, our community, and think in terms of social support. So crossing the boundaries and making the whole system an open system, and then let we should let the energy flow to the the next system openly. That is really going to help us. So and another important thing is the virtual world here, a simulated environment, computer based online. As madam said, definitely it is quite expensive. Not many people can afford to have this kind of mobiles too, and all this. But and one more important thing is, it is going to increase the aggressive behavior, and slowly it deteriorates social and human relationships also. And people have already got addicted to these, and quite lack of flexibility, and there are many functional issues as well. But it creates interest and increases, especially from child's perspective, students perspective, and it improves quality of education. So for each and everything, we need to take both advantages as well as disadvantages, because as already said, it must be very open. We must all be kind of open. Let us not remain very closed about this situation, instead of all the time being under fear, confusion, and kind of unseen, these kind of then. So what exactly is needed during this period? That is, the energy and the resources have to be built. So here the energy could be physical, psychological and social, including spiritual energy. So physical energy, it comes from the very food, household, money, healthcare, perceived social support. And here psychological energy could be unconditional positive regard, love, affection. Again, crossing these individual boundaries, family, I mean micro systems. I'm talking about macro systems here. from community perspective, we need to see the larger systems, the world I'm talking about. So love, affection, relaxation, peace, and all that. When it comes to the social life, many things are at stake. Many things have become, closed now. So we need to cross these boundaries here, which again, comes through these energy. Social support systems have to be, for example, healthcare system, definitely it is a very closed system which needs to be open. I mean, when the patients, I mean, we are still, in a kind of confusion. But now even private hospitals, even a small community, organization, or a small center here, this also needs to be very, very responsible about people. Now if I'm, using a mask here, I'm only, like, anyway, I'm helping myself, I'm protecting myself. But this should be more from, others perspective. I'm actually, thinking about the other person also. So here I may be here, I wanted to think from, community psychology perspective as well, not only health, but from community perspective as well. Because here it's such a pandemic, the pandemic that we are in. If we simply think about our own selves, I don't think it is really going to help us. We need to think from, larger systems. This is what I wanted to say. Because today, right now, almost 5 million people have already, died. And just in 3 days, I think 1 million people have all, they attacked with this pandemic. So the rate, instead of getting kind of, getting feared and shocked about these rates and the prevalence, and then, incidence rates and all that, let us be little more, risky. Come on, let us acknowledge, okay, whatever we are in, we are into it already, we are into it. So let us acknowledge it and start from here. Because no person, I think, is totally into this optimal wellness state. Just now you said all the age, they are into some kind of health issue or no, I mean, they are into it, probably they are into some kind of neutral point. Okay, whatever we are into, let us start from there only. And then let us understand, and let us go ahead with our life. Let us start taking risk, and let us become, resilient here, and come out with a kind of, some different changed rules and changed life roles here. Because, I want to, use this for thwarting, change the very sense of self, sense of role, sense of community. Because we keep saying that, we think from community perspective, but not many people really understand what exactly it is. Now the parents role, the teachers, as well as, any important other person must take it as a community problem. Community means, again, I'm not just not confining it to the place that we are living in, or city or state, but from the world perspective. Because, globally it is attacking. So we are attacked globally. That means our sense of responsibility must be, like, more, in fact. So otherwise, if the energy is not flowing, this positive energy is not flowing in these aspects, probably, there could be a kind of positive, entropy. So because we finally we are going to lose our very uh, sorry, it's going to somewhere, the order is going to be missed. In fact, somewhere it is going to break down. We don't even know where exactly, things are going wrong, where exactly it is the there's a misfit in all the layers of environment. Because here, if someone is into some kind of suicidal tendencies, let us not say that, he is emotionally disturbed. Somewhere there's a misfit in the environmental layers, maybe the family, or maybe tomorrow it could be some, like, educational center, or friends are not cooperating, or maybe, the support system is not cooperating, or somewhere there's a kind of misunderstanding, confused state here. So we need to study that person, why he has become so disturbed, from, like, layer to layer to layer. Because our responsibility is very big. I'm not saying that, it's that easy. But if we just sit here and try to understand what exactly is the problem of one small, group, or one small kind of, community, like aged people, I don't think, it works. So it needs to be, again, if an aged person, or if an aged, or aged community is not actually, like, handling it better, then let us go to the family, so what I'm trying to say is here, that ecosystem, we need to, get back to that ecosystem and then try to understand. And another important thing is here, even from individual perspective also, because after all, individual needs to be understood. From individual only other layers start. So individual system here, exactly, at the individual level, if there is stress, if there is some physical vulnerability here, what is the rate of his or her coping skills? What exactly is the perceived social support there? What is his self esteem? So first, let us think from let us start from individual level, then how to reduce and how to really, reduce the perceived stress of that individual. So what about the relaxation techniques, yoga, meditation, and then cognitive restructuring, and then reducing the negative impact of all these, biologically based vulnerabilities as well. And then, coping skills, whether be it, emotionally focused coping skills or social skills, and increasing that, perceived social support as well. Because the chronic diseases as well can be, diseases or illnesses can be helped to the greatest extent just by this perceived social support. And again, self-esteem and self-efficacy. But at the same time, we need to think about environmental level, that is beyond individual, because here the stressors are various, like biological stressors, psychological stressors, social stressors.
Right.
So all these stressors must be understood, and then risk factors, because if the positive socialization practices or social support resources, opportunities for positive relatedness and connectedness are not more, then naturally stressors are going to be more. The risk factors in the environment is going to be more. So positive, yeah. So this is what I wanted to say here. So in this shortest period, that I have been given, so I think I could reach out at least one or two persons here, because I know somewhere, I couldn't actually, come up with a great, kind of understanding here, but I tried
you.
my level best. So thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Dr. Shulagna and Dr. Veeraja and Mrs. Padma Priya made, well, very, very perceptive presentations, where Shulagna talked about, that there's going to be complete change in lifestyle, the way we work in organizations, the work environment is going to be changing. Many of us, we need to work from home. Family life is going to be changing. If you're working from home, you need to have different kinds of skills. And Padma Priya talked about, the kind of a investment, we are making in public health. It's only 1%. This pandemic has clearly given indication that, we are not investing anything in public health. That's why, we couldn't cope with this kind of a problem. Then she talked about, digital divide. Can we talk about virtual life? Do we really have technology? Can we access that technology in schools and colleges and universities? And limitation. And I think very good presentation by Veeraja, where she talked about, the mental health. Already we are getting reports from all over the country. Several youth are going through depression. Suicides are on the increase. And very, eloquently talked about the impact of COVID on biological and psychological life. We need to change roles. Parents have to look at life differently. Children will have to look at life differently. You and I in classroom teaching, perhaps we need to look at life differently, because students are going to be coming into the classroom with greater challenges. As it is, there are challenges in the classroom, because students come from different types of social, economic, cultural, geographical, regional background. But then COVID-19 has added several other dimensions, as you talked about. Well, we'll open it for discussion. We have about almost about 400 to 500 participants from all over the world. We will try to take in questions. I request all of you to answer those questions. Now, with this, I request our people, Mr. Vivek. Are you there?
Yes, sir. Sir is here.
Yeah, Subhangi. Vivek, are there any questions? Subhangi, we have about almost about 55 minutes for discussion.
Yes, sir.
I think it's
There
important.
is one question to Padma ma'am. Already in many international schools, students are unable to pay the term fees and are not allowed to join the online lectures, and teachers are told if students do not pay the fees, their salaries will be affected. How do we expect teachers to take stand in a situation as this? This is asked by Rita from Mumbai.
Yeah, not only Students are not paying fees. There are several colleges and universities in the country which are not getting paid. Particularly private colleges have not been, managements have not been paying in terms of several other institutions. How do you look at the problem?
So I think, like I said, I really feel like these are, life after COVID in our social settings and in our work, I think for us has exposed a lot of gaps, has also exposed how weak our regulatory mechanisms have been, and how if you privatize healthcare and education, it will only lead to more inequities. In this very particular question about the international schools, I'm a parent too, and I have a 5-year-old who's going to school, and I don't know when the schools will resume, but I have to pay.
You were raising the issue about in public health, if you invest 10% of the
Yes.
GDP, because predominantly if you take health is also now in the private sector.
Of course, 80% of Indians access healthcare from the private sector, absolutely. But I feel whether it's healthcare and education, I think time is now for us to sort of realize that these are two very important things that just cannot be privatized, just cannot be given away and told, you handle it. And I think a very, very good example of how investing in health and education can reap results can be seen in Kerala. I think irrespective of which government has been in Kerala, Kerala has always invested very well in their literacy and in their healthcare and in decentralized governance. And I think they are reaping the benefits of all that now when a pandemic has hit, whether it was the Nipah outbreak, which they nipped at the bud, or even after the massive floods that destroyed Kerala. I think Kerala's decentralized governance, Kerala's literacy rate, Kerala's healthcare, I think these came to the rescue. And I think for us, we need to realize that at the end of it, it really doesn't matter if you're working for an international, multinational company, or if a child is going to an international school, because when times like this come, we need to ask if governments will rise up and will help us tide this thing, right? So with regards to this international school, I mean, we need to ask, we need to now ask what are the mechanisms that are actually available with, say, the Department of Education, with us as parents, and within the Right to Education Act, how can we use these mechanisms? What is our, right to education is a constitutional right. So on what basis is a private school saying that if you don't pay fees, you will be denied online classes? So I think we need to ask these questions, and that's what I meant when I said life after COVID. Really, how it changes depends a lot on us, whether it's a social interaction, virtual interaction. I really hope this makes us to think more and ask more questions. So I don't have the answer to this, but I do feel like we need to now challenge the government more. Like PLV Garu does very often, file PILs, hold the government accountable, go to courts, hold even the courts accountable. Why are you not standing up for the right to life, right to dignity, and right to education and health?
Yeah, thank you very much. Are there any questions, Vivek? We will take.
Yes,
I'm sure there are several questions. Vivek.
Yes, there are several questions. I will pose one from my own side.
Yeah.
So there was this thing about work from home. There have been studies in the United States which show that in reality, in the name of work from home, employers are actually not looking at timings. They are calling up people or asking people to work at whatever time they want to. Also, if you look at like the model of working from home, it kind of shifts the burden of resources, expenditure of electricity or expenditure of internet data is now falling on the employee, and there are no timings as such. Plus we have a situation where like people like Narayan Murthy are saying that you should work for 10 hours or 12 hours for the country. So you have a proposal of locking salaries or cutting salaries, and you have a proposal for ending work hours. Will this really work? Especially, why I'm saying this is because this same generation which is being asked to do it now is the aspirational generation. These people had their hopes built up like anything, and now you're saying that no, you have to compromise on everything and work for others without asking anything in return.
Yeah, I was saying, working from home or working at home, well, yeah. But then I will request Dr. Shulagna to answer that question. How do you look at it?
Yeah, certainly. I was really expecting this. There is something, this discussion going on where the bosses are exploiting their people. And that is very true. In fact, all my friends and colleagues, those who are especially in IT sector, they are working more longer hours, more difficult hours, and in the terms of performance, they are being just exploiting. So this ethical dilemma has to lie with the bosses in terms of how they can build that trust and get the work done, instead of focusing on more hours and more work. And you continuously, just because you're not allowed at workplace, you give more hours of time and give more performance. That is not the kind of expectations that we should set. Simultaneously, I also would like to say, we as an employee do understand that even the employers are at difficult times. So as an employee, we would also like to do the best that we can for our employers and give the, just not just the typical hours of work, but if our work needs more expectations, more work to be done in a longer hours in the difficult times, why not? So it has to be the commitment both from the employee and the employer's end. And let us not just exploit people saying that, no, just because you're at home, you have to work more. That I think that thought itself is not right. It should be mutual, that I see the work has to happen.
Okay. Vivek, we'll take some more questions.
Yes, sir. One more question. This is from Nagarjuna, sir, directed towards Shulagna, ma'am. So he asks that once a vaccine is available, is it possible that we'll all go back to square one, like our normal lives, the way it was before COVID-19 struck India, and we'll have our own old habits again?
That's a very good question. Saying, we will have normal work culture, or we'll get used to, the kind of a situation right now we are in. We are working from home, networking, network organizations have evolved.
I've been hearing quite a lot of discussions online and on TV regarding this, but sadly, most of the country representatives have been emphasizing that even though we are talking of vaccine, even the vaccine comes, that's going to take at least for another 2 more years, and we have a population of 1.3 billion. It is expected to be more during the month of January, February. I don't know how many of you have read that article. So with that kind of population, I don't know at how many long more years we really need to penetrate down to each and every individual and have the vaccination done. So even if one person in the country is infected, there is a possibility that might percolate down. So precautions has to be there for the next 20 to 30 years, and I think the survival rate for us also is like another maybe 20-30 years, or maybe few will have more years to run. So I don't see it immediately things are going to be the same, or even the vaccine comes and that somebody just spreads it and days okay back to the old mode. That is certainly not going to be the situation. It's going to take time, another 20 years, just like any other pandemic which is affected earlier, has been a lot of time. That is what we are going to witness with COVID too.
Priya, would you like to look at that question? We are also running a company.
I mean, I'm running a small company. I just have we have 5 people, and even prior to the pandemic, a lot of our work was being done virtually because we are a digital media company. But I do know that, we will have to change the way we work. We will have to change the way we, even for journalists especially. And I know there are a lot of people here who are journalists and who are mass comm students. I mean, I know friends who are working for different media companies who are being told to go out on the road to report, get stories, and they're being told that don't worry, if you get COVID, we will take care of the medical bills. There is this general assumption that if you're a youngster, you will beat with the virus, whereas statistically and even research is showing that I mean, of course, people above a certain age are getting impacted more, but it doesn't mean that a 30-year-old or a 20-year-old won't die of it, right? So I feel like we need to also think in terms of ethics. We need to think in terms of employer responsibility towards an employee. And I feel like there needs to be, I think more importantly, a destigmatization of the disease itself, right? I mean, we know that it's a virus. We know that it's a virus like any common cold virus, but this is more novel, and it it spreads faster, it infects faster, it impacts you much faster. And I feel like as employers, we need to be more empathetic, we need to be more compassionate, and we need to be okay, not just with COVID, but say if an employee tomorrow says that, I'm not feeling well, you need to be okay to say, that's all right, take rest, and I really hope we reach that point because of this pandemic. I remember, like, for example, an organization that I work for, even if I had fever, I had to go to office. Even if I was unwell, I had to, I was denied medical leaves. And for me, I just never got that, right? But now, obviously, if you have a cold, cough, fever, no chance they will let you anywhere inside the office. It shouldn't take a pandemic for us to realize that any illness, any sickness is equally debilitating for the person going through it, I mean, so I hope that this will make employers more compassionate, honestly.
I'm happy you're saying that employers should be more compassionate, but at the same time, the country is thinking about 12 hours work schedule. They're talking about labor reforms, and trade unions are already thinking of going to the International Labour Organization because they are not getting the right kind of response as they should be getting from our High Court or the Supreme Court. That is another kind of a dimension. Maybe if we get some time, we will talk about whether work ethic, work relationships are going to be changing in view of the pandemic we are in. We will try to take some more questions. Mr. Vivek Subangi.
Yeah, one second, sir. The next question also ties up to the thing that ma'am was speaking, Padma Priya ma'am. So we have a lot of students who are into mass communication, or like friends who are working in the industry, and they're saying this, they are raising this particular concern. What about people who are into the creative side? The mass communication industry, who are like suffering because of this lockdown, because it's a seasonal kind of industry where you don't have long-term jobs, mostly short-term contracts, and these people are under great stress now. So this was put forward by Sarvesh Yadav.
So I think I don't have an answer for this, but I do know that yes, I think those in the creative, film, television, media industry are going to face hardships for the next few months. Whereas say a film industry,
just to give you a fact, in the media entertainment industry, about 6 million people work in this country. Already 1 million of them have lost their jobs.
Yes. And we're talking about, say, like spot boys. We're talking about those who get you the chai and run canteens for film shootings. I mean, these are like even like smaller jobs that are going. But those particularly in the creative sector, whether it is animation industry or whether it is film, mass comm, journalism, I think we have to gear up for the fact that it's going to get tougher, and it will honestly become about survival. I think like Vivek sir pointed out, this is an aspirational generation. This is a generation that has aspired to go up, and now we are being hit from all sides. There's one pandemic, and then it led to an economic collapse, and now you also have natural disaster somewhere in West Bengal happening and Orissa happening. So I think I don't have a right answer for this, but I do feel like we need to mentally gear up for this. Mentally gear up that the months ahead are going to be tough. But don't give up, just keep doing what you're doing, keep skilling yourself. I think that's really important. Use the time that you have now to continue skilling yourself. Do internships, do apprenticeships, and keep looking for jobs. I mean, honestly, that's all we all can do, right, at this point.
I think, we should get into Dr. Veeraja.
Yes, sir.
Veeraja, you are in a classroom situation every day.
Yes.
Because talking of students, do you think, classroom dynamics will change? You talked about the complexity of problems we have. As it is, when we get into the classroom, the attention span of students is rather disturbing. Do you think COVID-19 will have impact on students?
Definitely, it's going to have an impact on students, sir. I mean, yesterday I was speaking to my students. In fact, more than 50% of them are already feeling quite lonely. And in the beginning, in fact, people were quite kind of, they were looking forward to change the whole situation. They were like saying all these, kuchikuing words like, oh, wow, we are going to stay with our family and friends and all that. Slowly after 2 or 3, weeks, things have started, changing. It was no longer the same. And we have started, at least, myself, I have started taking online classes from April 11th or something like that. Already I'm done with 22 classes like that. And
What has been your
almost
experience? What is the attention span of
exactly.
Yeah.
So here, for the past 6 or 7 classes, because each class would be around 2.5 hours, I'm trying to cut down on that, again, for each 2 or 3 concepts anyway it will take, you can't break it in between, right? So it was like, madam, you're going little faster, madam, I think somewhere I missed out on that. So again, I call them on 5 o'clock, and again we go for a kind of discussion. But the thing is, madam, why don't you just record the whole thing and just leave it on Skype online? So we don't know, I mean, how to really connect with our students. That has become, I mean, it's kind of all the time, keep connecting to that age group. It's definitely, it's a big problem. So those students who are quite interested in, I mean, they always remain, quite but those students who are not, how students are in fact, how to really keep them connected, that has become a real big problem,
Real
even
challenge.
for children. Or yeah, even for children also. And almost daily 2 to 3 students I keep calling them, and I keep trying to connect to them. And it is still we are also equally kind of looking forward how to change this situation, because unless and until student becomes responsible here, I don't think, however committed a teacher is, somewhere that connectivity through mobiles for now, maybe coming up with some other programs here, all the time just involving ourselves into various other programs as well. Maybe some kind of assignments here, or maybe some kind of, I mean, going little beyond education. I mean, we cannot confine ourselves to only the concepts and books and all that. We need to connect with the students from other perspectives also. That is going to really maintain our connectivity here. Otherwise, if we confine ourselves, because student, after all, they can just relate themselves to the concept, just they go to Google and Google it up. I mean, I don't think it is. So we need to be really authentic. We need to update ourselves, what exactly is happening around. Our teacher needs to remain, they must again update their knowledge. They must become more authentic, whatever that we are sharing with our students. So I think for the past 3 months, I'm telling you, it is really exhausting. What we used to do before these kuchiku, I would say, I still said the same thing. I repeat that, what we were sharing in our classrooms. Yeah, these things have changed, but really it's a good learning experience. I'm taking it totally positive.
Yeah, we
I'm
have large
positive about
number
the
of
whole
participants.
thing.
We
Yes,
have
sir.
large number of participants who have registered for this webinar. We'll try to take in some more questions. Vivek and Prangi.
So, this question is for Veeraja ma'am from Ravi Teja. Don't you think that there will be an issue in psychology of employees when they are asked to resume work from office, that too after 3-4 months of work from home?
Yeah.
Hello, is this for me, sir?
Yeah.
Yes, it's for you,
We'll
ma'am.
answer that.
Can you please repeat the question, sir? Because the voice is breaking, sir. Can you
Sure,
please
ma'am.
repeat
Sure,
the question, ma'am?
Sure, ma'am. Don't you think that there will be an issue in psychology of employees when they are asked to resume work from office, that too after 3-4 months of work from home?
Yeah. The question is,
yes,
are there likely to be different kind of psychological pressures or orientation after you worked from home for about 4 months? What kind of challenges, what kind of psychological pressures they are likely to face?
Yes. Definitely, something has changed now. The lifestyle is changing, the discipline that once we used to have, everything changing. Again, I would share my own experience here. In fact, I'm just, kind of observing how I would be, like joining my classes after, maybe around June or July. In fact, August, I have just no idea, because the very lifestyle has changed now. And those who have been remained committed to their job anyway, they have always remained committed. But once, and whatever be the timings and all that, but since the lifestyle has changed, again coming back to the same lifestyle, and after post-COVID, in fact, these lifestyles and everything is going to be changed. In fact, I'm also observing that. But hello.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am, we can hear you, ma'am.
Yeah, so definitely it's going to have its impact, psychologically, because social factors. In fact, I can't really, meet my friends, meet my colleagues, there. and my relations, my work relations with my employees as well, my colleagues as well, everything is going to be changed here. So psychologically, definitely it is going to be different. So I think we need to observe for some more time instead of coming to conclusions. I think just remain cool about everything. Let us be remain observant about everything. So why unnecessarily anticipating all these things and coming into a kind of anxious state?
But the impact is visible already.
Yeah, definitely there is going to be impact, sir, because after all, we have never faced any situation like this now. At least we can't even Google back and then see what exactly how they have reacted, how they have remained, all that. Let us remain calm right now. It's okay. It's okay. We are going through something. What has it? It's okay. It's okay. Still we are surviving now. That is that was at stake some point of time. We was at our stake. Our very life was at kind of stake. Come on, it's okay. But yeah.
Right. Vivek, we'll take some more questions.
Yes, there is one question to Padma Priya ma'am. Okay, Shulagna ma'am wants to add something.
Yeah, I just want to add a little point to what Madam Veeraja was saying. Like classrooms and offices, what the other day we were discussing in our own office, that we cannot have all 60 students in a class sitting down together. That is completely that question has been ruled off. Now, what is possible is just like what Delhi government has done is odd and even. So what we are planning, even though we have been asking to get students, come to attend classes from August or September, whenever it starts, we are planning to have for an odd and even number. So one day, odd people attend the class and the others get to attend the same class online. And the other day, evens attend the class and the odd ones get to attend online. So it is, in a way, we are maintaining social distance, even though we have been asked to conduct classes. In similar way, even workplaces needs to think of staggered workforce, staggered durations of work time. So while we were working from 9 to 5, now we can start our offices from 7 to 7 and spread people across, or have like IDs which are odd and even, and ask them to come and do the work accordingly with large space. That really helps.
That is possible in elite institutions and corporate institutions. But when you are talking about the government sector, there are no rooms, the space is very limited. I don't think, it is social distancing is possible at all. Let us take, our government schools, the way they are. Let us take, government colleges, or even, state universities. They've got, limited infrastructure, limited space. But anyway, we will deal with that challenge. Are there more questions?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
One more question.
Okay. This question is to Padma Priya ma'am from Sriram. What is the true definition of exploitation according to you? One employee can say working for extra 1 minute is exploitation, and someone would say it for 1 hour. Are we right in using the word exploitation?
Well, yeah. It's the question of how you look at it. There are labor laws, there are labor regulations, there are work ethics are there, work values are there. Well, anyone who's trying to, anyway, let me look at it on how she's going to look at it, because she used the word exploitation. Of course, exploitation is taking place. Trade unions are going on strike. Today, all the trade unions have given call for a strike, saying that, well, we are being exploited. We can't work for 12 hours. Yeah. Absolutely. How do you look at it?
I think one of the things that we have, and I think this is more a reflection on us as a society and as a culture, irrespective of whether we're working for a multinational or for a factory. I think as Indians, we have been tuned to think and conditioned to think that it is all right to work more. That it is all right to place your work, give work your priority. That it is okay, to be told to work overtime, and it is okay to work overtime without overtime pay. Like if you're working overtime, then you should be given overtime pay. But I think we've been conditioned to think that. Even think about, go back into your childhood. Like we've constantly also been told that you have to work hard, and working hard, yes, of course it is great. And you had our Prime Minister ji also talk about Atmanirbharta and all that. Great, of course, fantastic concepts. But at the crux of the problem lies that we have conditioned and normalized exploitation of workforce. And I think that is something that we need to accept. Even let us reflect in our own homes. a lot of us underpay the people who work at our homes, who come and clean our homes, who cook for us. You know, I mean, the minute they ask us for a hike of 500 rupees, we say, "Arey, humko to hike nahi mil raha hai. Aap kya abhi 500 rupees zyada pooch rahe ho?" 500 rupees for us in the scheme of things is not a lot. It's what, a cup of coffee, or you know, in Starbucks, right? But we are so used to thinking that it is okay to get work done for lesser pay. So of course, you know, some people might be okay with it. We need to ask the question, why are we okay with it? Why are we okay with free labor? Why are we, why, for example, even journalists, I mean, I can tell you for a fact that I think one of the most underpaid, most exploited workforce are the journalists of this country. Why are we okay with being underpaid? Why are we being paid 50 paisa per word? Excuse me, like, who pays like this? Similarly to factories, why are we as middle class people not getting out on the roads when the labor laws across India are being diluted and we're being said that, you know, 12 hours kaam karo, 16 hours kaam karo, 14 hours kaam karo? That is not okay. Are we okay to wear clothes made out of sweat labor, sweat and blood of workers? Something I really think we need to ask these questions. We shouldn't be okay with 1 minute of overtime without being paid extra. So it really depends on how are you valuing yourself. How have we normalized overwork and, you know, termed it as hard work? We need to do hard work for the government, you know. We need to work hard for the nation. Of course, we need to do all this. But let's also ask the question, what is the government doing for us in this time of crisis? What is the government doing for the migrants and for those migrant workers who are building our homes, who are stitching our clothes, who are, you know, helping us with food and everything? What are they doing for the government?
Yeah, the migrant labor is called the modern builders.
Yeah.
You know, not only we're talking about exploitation, we are living in a society which is absolutely unjust. Look at the kind of inequality we have. There's something called the public sector, private sector, corporate sector, government sector. The entire wage structure is altogether different in this country. That is kind of another kind of an exploitative order. But anyway, we will take in some more questions.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
So there is one question to Shulagna ma'am from Kishore sir. After COVID, can a person's life be a virtual life? Will I be happy living a virtual social life?
Yeah. Okay. Shulagna.
I think we've already
Virtual life,
discussed on
virtual social life. Yeah.
I think we've already discussed on this. In fact, the other day, my little daughter, she's 6-year-old, and she was celebrating the birthday of her toy. And she asked all her grandparents to cook some items in their respective houses. And she said that I'm going to cut the cake at 6 o'clock. So all of you please join. And we had to connect all the grandparents, both the grandparents at 6 o'clock. But it was fun. We understand the irony of the situation is that we all can't be together to celebrate small happinesses. But what is important is the idea of being together. It's the mind of being together is important. Social life is not going to be the same, the partying culture and what it used to be earlier. But with great responsibility, can we be together? So I really learned a lot of things from my daughter when she explained that I want to have this virtual party. It clicked. It is virtual social life that we are heading towards.
Not only social life, economic life, cultural life, the way we think, our attitude, perception is going to change related to every activity. We'll take in some more questions.
Yeah, can I add, you know, just one point here, sir? Probably the virtual life, you know, it's okay for children because they have not yet learned anything, you know, but for adults, in fact, it's going to be really different. In fact, for you, sir, for example, you know, it's totally different. In fact, you know, I mean, we are in a state of, you know, bewilderment, like, you know, where to start here, you know, from, which way we are supposed to go to remain the same, you know, socially. So definitely it is going to be a problem, but not as much, you know, for children here. Yeah, thank you.
We'll take in some more questions.
Yes.
Vivek or Subhangi.
Okay, there is a question.
Yeah.
Okay, there is a question from Shravani. According to the studies in US, there are also relationship issues among family members. Okay, so how can this problem be controlled or resolved if work from home continues post lockdown?
Yeah, we can perhaps ask, you know, Veeraja to look at that question, and both, you know,
family relations. Family relations.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Now in US probably I mean we cannot really see the same thing in India. First I would like to state one line, what exactly it is in India, because I think we are again going back to the same system, the gender discrimination. If it remains same, probably the women must be looking fast by 9 or 10 something like that, and they get back to work. Where exactly, that needs to be seen very carefully. But
But Dr.
domestic,
Priya, there are already reports in India which indicate that the domestic violence is on the increase.
exactly, sir, exactly. And in many like household here, what we get to see is my husband is actually helping to look after my children, but I have to do double the work, triple the work, because all the children they're staying home. Definitely you need to cook more, you need to look after them more. And generally women become the teachers. In fact, they become the more disciplined teachers here. I mean, they're not left with any other option. But so fathers need to learn. Probably they should be learning from women here. It's okay, because they have never learned anything like this. So family relations, that's what I've been saying, that unitary, that strong system between wife and husband, that needs to be seen differently now. After all, we are not supposed to enter out of their house. So naturally, being dependent on each other, it's going to be seen from a different perspective. Now we are left with nobody else, just the family, our own small family. Probably that nuclear families now, there are very few joint families, especially in US. So I think the way they look at each other is going to be changed now. So that's what it's going to be changed. That's it. So family relation. Yes, sir.
Do you think scenario will be different in India, because there are also nuclear families in
But
India?
yeah, that's what it's going to be a little risky here over. I mean, because we need to be a little more careful. Probably the gender discrimination still it remains the more or less the same over here. So we need to be really on our
Yeah.
Yeah.
Vivek and Subhangi, we'll take some more questions.
Yes, sir. One more question. This is from, again, I think Shravani, and also from Amitesh. So these are students.
Yeah.
What they're saying is, given this lockdown and the loss of jobs, what will happen to youngsters? Like, do they need to restructure their lives? Because many of them are actually not having jobs now. Like one of the students I taught, she called me up yesterday and said that she's been out of a job for almost 6 months.
Yeah.
And it doesn't look like she's going to get back into a job. And that pressure of having to ask money from parents, okay, or like students who are pursuing their final year, they are facing a lot of uncertainty. They don't know where to go and give interviews, to whom to send CVs. So all these things are coming up for these students, and they are under stress because of that.
Vivek, to answer that question, statistics already released by the Center for Monitoring of the Indian Economy say 24% of the India workforce is out of gainful work. They do not have job. And the study further says unemployment is going to be an increase. As all of you know, that the kind of unemployment we had having in India, we didn't have it for 45 years. Now COVID is going to hit us much more sharply. We are going to lose, several people are losing jobs in several kinds of sectors. Anyway, we will ask Shulagna to look at that question, because she's teaching human resource development in IPE.
Sir, I see this a little differently, because I do agree there have been job losses, but survival will be for people, those who have skills and quality, and those who can, bring up their skills during this time, those who can invest their time fruitfully this time, are the ones who are actually going to win the situation.
But are you talking about new skills? How are we going to be getting that new skills?
Absolutely, new skills.
You are teaching in a university. They already say 80% of the graduates who are passing out from colleges and universities, unfortunately, do not have skills. What kind of skills we need to acquire to be surviving in the market?
Absolutely, that is one thing I think we've been dwelling before COVID also. So the skill sets is all about, nowadays I find that the students, they don't have the right attitude. They have every other thing in them. They have the bestest of the communication, but the moment when you ask them to get into the company and what the company's expectation, there is a mismatch between the two. So there is a lot of attitudinal problem with the current generation. They need to think in terms of what the company is expecting of them, and rather than focusing on that individualistic aspect. So that gap needs to be worked upon. And of course, basic skills are missing. They're fantastic when it comes to speaking. The moment you ask them to write an email, it has happened in my own institute, and I'm sure
Right.
the moment you ask them to write an email, you will see what you is never a YOU, it is you. So those kind of things a corporate is not expecting. So there's a lot of gap. I feel completely this is the best time. In fact, best time for not just human beings, but best time for the environment, everything to recover. It's like I feel every year a 14-day lockdown would definitely help for us to revive everything, check out ourselves where we are lagging, and groom ourselves and come up better. So I think this is an investment time.
Okay. Are there any questions, Vivek and Subhangi?
There is one question to Padma ma'am. Padma Priya ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, it is from Bhumesh Daya. He asked that, is it the right time and eye-opener for governments in India, state and central, to invest in the public health post-COVID-19, ready to face future pandemic situations, many more like COVID-19?
Yeah, she's already made that point. Right now, we are investing in public health just about 1%. But she said, we need to invest, 10% of the GDP. But do you think, right now, that attitude is there, Padma Priya? The governments are seriously thinking of investing in the health sector?
I think a lot of state governments and even the central government have suddenly realized how woefully inadequate their systems have been. You see now suddenly job openings for epidemiologists. You need epidemiologists round the clock. You don't hire an epidemiologist just before a pandemic. An epidemiologist, a virologist are very, very key to helping track infectious diseases and in spotting outbreaks. I'll give you an example. I had done this interview with Dr. Arun Kumar, who was the first to identify the Nipah virus in the Kerala outbreak. And I asked him this question about, if he thinks that we are prepared for a pandemic like COVID. And I did this in February, even before the cases, came to a lakh in India. And one of the things that he said is how woefully underinvested our infectious disease surveillance program is, the IDSP program. Now, the IDSP program is part of the National Center for Disease Control, the NCDC as we call it. And except for a few states like Kerala and maybe Tamil Nadu, no state government and the central government have not focused and not invested in these programs. And we're talking about research, we're talking about development, we're talking about investing in these systems where you have to train people at the ground level to identify an outbreak. You have to train people to also communicate these outbreaks. And I think there can't be a better time than now for us to start investing in our public health. And one of the things that the government has been repeatedly saying and has been saying that why they're extending the lockdown has been to buy time to upgrade the hospitals, to bring add more beds, to add more ventilators. My question remains, why weren't they doing this before? So I think no better time than now for us to invest and up our GDP. Great to put out a 20 lakh crore loan mela package,
right.
But please direct some of it to public health investment.
Yeah. As you are saying, civil society in this country has already set that agenda. There's a lot of discussion going on that certainly we need to invest, much more in our public health. We have now, we have realized that. Let's only hope that's going to happen. We'll take in some more questions.
So this question is for you, sir. PLV, sir. Yeah. In this situation of pandemic, how do we motivate ourselves with various circumstances? Bring our motivation and morale down. Please suggest, sir.
Well, motivation, I think, at least for the last 3 months, lockdown has been imposed. I was quite concerned about what's happening in this country, reading up a lot. I think, as Padma Priya made that point, we need to use, institutions of this country. There is a Human Rights Commission, both at the state level and the central level. I've been filing several kinds of PIL, moved the Supreme Court, moved the High Court, whatever little writing was possible. Well, I was trying to do it, trying to organize, the civil society, etc. I think, it is very, very important, particularly in a country like India, with a huge population of 135 crore population. There is a responsibility for the civil society. Individuals like all of us should try to see and get motivated and motivate others. Otherwise, it's impossible to deal with a pandemic of this magnitude. Yeah, thank you. Any more questions? Vivek.
Yes, sir. There is one question from a student of St. Joseph's.
Yeah.
Her name is Josephine. So what she's saying is, it's very difficult for youngsters to handle this stress on different counts. Not only are their classes off, they face very like bleak prospects for jobs. Then sitting at home is a completely different kind of game. You are like constantly only with your parents.
I think you should answer that question. You're also a teacher. You spend a lot of your time. You should answer that question. You spend a lot of your time in the classroom. How are you going to be? Yeah.
I think like from my own perspective, sir, what I have understood is like I am an introvert. I actually spend a lot of time with my like alone or like doing something which does not require a lot of.
Pandemic has made any impact on you? Are you becoming an extrovert now?
No, sir. I think I've become more of an introvert.
Okay.
So I think like one thing I've noticed among kids, like the kids whom I teach is, they have become too dependent on gadgets. Their social interaction skills have gone down a lot. And I don't think they're able to kind of like cope with situations where they cannot switch to a television set or to a mobile phone. But anyway, the girl who posed this question, sir, she was directing it towards ma'am, Shulagna ma'am, not, sorry, Professor Veeraja.
Yes, ma'am. Live, can you please repeat the question, sir?
Now, how are your students should be dealing with? How should they go?
Stress, stress. Yes, sir. So just now, sir said, he has become more introvert, right? So even, yesterday, one of my students, because she was also stating the same thing, I have become more an introvert.
That's the impact of COVID, that they are becoming more introvert?
Yes. And one more thing here, sir, because especially youngsters, they used to meet their friends and they used to go out and all that, everything has been, curbed. So naturally, they are going to become or feel lonely about it. So but this situation has changed to that an extent that acceptance of the situation is very, very important. So that's what exactly is going to make us maintain our homeostasis here. So how we are going to accept the situation means, first of all, we need to look into our own selves. Yes, I mean, what is this, why madam is saying so, kind of no sir, yes, this is the time to look into our own selves. What exactly I am very good at. So we have to all the time think in terms of definitely learning more skills. Yes, skill oriented, number one. And what is that we are interested in, and then naturally going for certain kind of CBT techniques as well, if they are into some kind of misconceptions or misperceptions about our own selves. Yes, no, it's okay, an introvert or extrovert, but introvert can also again relate in their own way, na, sir?
Okay.
Right, not being expressive, but you can remain expressive in more in other ways also. So we need to become more skill oriented. Yes, if you want to relax, you must relax. If you want to do meditation, you must do it. So finding our ways is very, very important right now. And there are more techniques are of our own like interest. So probably instead of mentioning all the stress management skills, I think the time has come to become for our own selves to become little more novel, sir.
Right.
Definitely little more new, because repeating the same thing, I need not repeat all those techniques, sir. I think probably Vivek sir and many of those students, they already have an idea about all these things. Okay. So this is the situation where we need to think novelly, new ideas, sir. Yeah.
I just want to add one point to this, PLV, sir.
Yeah, quickly.
Quickly. I think we also have to accept that it is okay if you're not able to at this point of time learn a new skill. I think there is also this added pressure from all sides.
Yeah, why?
Don't waste time. Learn a new skill. No, don't learn a new skill. You want to learn to read a book. I mean, if you're not someone who likes to read books, write something. Don't want to write, go watch something on net, on the TV. Don't want to watch TV, it's okay.
I want to simply sleep, sir.
Yeah,
I want to sleep.
Okay to be bored, right?
It's very normal to remain abnormal at times, because this is the time. It's okay. In fact, if you're depressed, realize your depression, stay back. It's okay, because the situation is so new that we are also observing it. So why, again under pressure, oh my God, I'm not able to relate. I'm not able to express myself. It's okay. Don't express anything. So just be observant. You want to simply look at, some colored, something like, okay, look at it. Simply sleep and just, look at it. It's okay. That's what.
Thank you. Can we get in Mr. Glenn? he also spent a lot of time in the classroom interacting with young people. Mr. Glenn.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. He's here, sir.
Yeah.
I think he needs to be unmuted. You're on mute. Yeah.
Yes. I've been. Yeah.
And how do you look at that? What kind of challenges do you think you're going to be facing in the classroom?
Sir, one I think is the disconnect. I'm sure that the students will have with us, sir, with the teaching community. It will take some time for them to connect with us. And also, sir, more than the students, I was also worried about one particular group of people, the elderly, sir.
Okay.
I wanted to know, ma'am, like the elderlies, like, it is always told to them that over 65 don't go out. Those with comorbidities don't go out. Like, what are the kind of stress levels that they go through? And I'm addressing this to Dr. Veeraja.
Yes,
like, how do I handle an old parent who's 78 and, he's not stepped out of his room almost all from the house for almost all 3 months. He stays, he's anxious, he's frightened.
Glenn, to look at that question, the advisory has already been given by the ministry that people above 65 should not be going out, should not be going to institutions and things of that nature. And that's going to be a major challenge. There are many of them over 65, but very active, both mentally and physically.
Yes,
but then if they're asked not to go out, that's another kind of a challenge we're going to be facing.
So at a point of time, our elderly people, they have learned all these new skills because, I wouldn't call that as pandemic, but definitely diabetes, some 20, maybe some 10 years back, it was like for every second, like elderly person, they were, became victim of diabetes and so many, certain things like that. I mean, diseases like that. But they have learned, so many skills. Now they have a complete control over their insulin levels. And suddenly...
Veeraja, did you look at this dimension of the impact of corona virus?
Yes, sir. That's what I'm coming to. Actually, now, suddenly everything has, curbed, like, 65 people, probably, 60 aged, more than that, I mean, you need to survive. If you want to, survive, you better stay home because, we don't have any control over that. So now I think, suddenly they are like, oh my God, maybe, we are going to die if we don't, kind of stay home. So these kind of a community, aged community must be coming together, sir. It's a kind of self-help group. What I'm trying to state here is it's a simple thing, sir, self-help group. So who are in that particular age group, probably who have certain health issues of that kind, they must, form into as many self-help group because self-help groups can really work wonders, sir. And not only again, the families have to change their attitude towards, aged people here. They must spend, more time with them. But these self-help groups, in fact, like staying together for a while. I mean, again, coming up with some kind of, new ideas here. I think, this is going to work, or this is going to help because, and little later, community centers, health centers, they can also come. Because we need to think, beyond families, beyond, aged persons or beyond people. Here, these things probably, need to be, like crossing boundaries. Again, I'll come back to that only. Crossing boundaries, from family to family, person to person. So helping, each other. That is really, going to work wonders here. So let's not simply, my mother 78 or my father 80. No. It's like, even their father is also 81 and someone else is, now how to really help them to form a common self-help group. And that is going to, sharing things. We are all in the same thing. Yeah. Let us share things and let us, cope with this, situation. And we are always there together. So, I believe in that.
Yeah. We can continue this webinar for a couple of more hours. Several multi-dimensional issues.
I don't know what I've stated.
We talked about life, lifestyle, impact on economic life, social life, classroom life, cultural life, working in the office. We also talked about investment in public health. Are we in a position to cope with this kind of a technology in terms of virtual reality, a virtual life? Several issues which have been a very, very lively webinar. Several issues concerning this country. When you're talking about, because I'm one of those people who look at, pandemic is going to have a greater impact because, of social and economic inequalities we have when you look at, the entire issue of the migrant labor. migrant laborers. Several of them are losing jobs. The impact is going to be much more. I thank all of you for participating in this webinar. Very, very interesting. Several interesting dimensions all of you have raised with your vast experience. I thank all of you. Now I request our faculty members, Mr. Nagarjuna, to sum it up and propose a very brief vote of thanks.
Yeah. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. I think we have had really an exciting 5-day webinar series, one outmatching the other, and I'm sure our participants have also enjoyed a lot in the sense they have enlightened themselves, enriched themselves, and informed themselves. Now it's my privilege, I deem it a privilege to propose vote of thanks on behalf of the principal, staff, and the students of St. Joseph's Degree and PG College, Hyderabad. I thank all the resource persons who made the 5-day webinar a grand success. Our special thanks to Professor Stevenson, Professor G. Nagamallika, Sri Kishore Guburi, Sri Sudhakar Gaud, Sri Mutti, Ms. Namrata Jaiswal, Ms. Ritvika, Sri Venkat Reddy, Ms. Supriya, Professor Srinivasulu, Srimati Shulagna Sarkar, Ms. Padma Priya, and Professor Veeraja Madam. But for the excellent moderation from Professor P.L. Vishweshwar, Director St. Joseph's College, and efficient coordination by the entire staff led by HOD Glenn De Silva, this webinar would not have garnered as much success as it did. Our thanks to all the participants for their active participation in large numbers. Their questions and continuous flow of messages in the chat kept us highly motivated, and we are grateful to them.
Yeah.
The tech support by Amida, led by Mutmucham, deserves a special mention of gratitude. We also thank all the unseen people who helped us from behind. Our sincere apologies for any glitches participants might have encountered, and we assure that we will be flawless in future sessions. Special thanks to our faculty, Keshav Vivek, Lasya, Shubhangi Mishra, Ratan, for their active coordination. Last but not the least, our thanks to our principal, Reverend Father Mar Reddy, but for whose support this webinar would not have been an outstanding success. Thank you all for this.
I request Mr. Glenn, who really anchored this program. Mr. Glenn, you will have the last word.
I would say that it has been a team effort all these 5 days. I remember while playing cricket, a gentleman says, the captain is as good as the team. It's the team which makes all the difference. So this success belongs totally to the team who have worked very hard, who have planned things meticulously. I can name them one by one: Shubhangi ma'am, Ratan sir, Keshav Vivek sir, Nagarjuna sir, Lasya ma'am. And above that, I have my guru and my mentor, PLV sir, guiding me at every step. So thank you so much. It has been a team effort. The sessions have been astounding. They have been remarkable. Each one have stood on their own. As Nagarjuna sir said, each episode or each session is always, it's been above. The benchmark is always gone up. So I really want to thank the team, and also my special thanks to all the resource persons who came in, who gave in their inputs, gave in their time. And also I need to mention Mr. Mutyam, who gave us the technical support that we needed. And my special thanks to, as you said, Principal Father K. Marreddy, our Dean, Father Prakash, and also special thanks to even Esther Ratna ma'am, who's the Student Dean Affairs, and all their guidance and all their support has made all this difference. So I'm sure participants, the 5 days have been a great experience for each one of you, and I wish all the very best in the days to come. And we need to have hope, and as Veeraja ma'am said, it is something that we need to learn to live with, and then we will overcome.
Yes, yes.
We will overcome. That's what is the human spirit.
We have right to live in this.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank
so
you.
The feedback forms are open, so kindly fill in the feedback forms. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and congratulations to the organizers.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Feedback link is open.
Shubhangi, we can exit out?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, can
Yes,
we?
ma'am.
Okay,
Yes,
thank
ma'am.
you. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you, ma'am. See you again.
you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Nagarjuna sir.
Yeah, thank you, thank you.
And
Thank
nice to
you.
meet all my co-speakers. Thank you, Veeraja ma'am. It was nice talking.
Thank you.